tell us the story.
The reading today is from Deuteronomy chapter 5, verse 1 through 21, and chapter 6, 4 through 9. Moses convened all Israel and said to them, "Hear, O Israel, the statutes and ordinances that I am addressing to you today. You shall learn them and observe them diligently. The Lord our God made a covenant with us at Horeb. Now not with our ancestors did the Lord make this covenant, but with us, who are all of us here today. The Lord spoke with you face to face at the mountain out of the fire. At that time I was standing between the Lord and you to declare to you the words of the Lord, for you were afraid because of the fire and did not go up the mountain." And he said, I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make for yourself an idol, whether in the form of anything that is in heaven above, or that is on the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. You shall not bow down to them or worship them, for I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, punishing children for the iniquity of parents to the third and fourth generation of those who reject me, but showing steadfast love to the 1,000th generation of those who love me and keep my commandments. You shall not make wrongful use of the name of the Lord your God, for the Lord will not acquit anyone who misuses his name. Observe the Sabbath day and keep it holy, as the Lord your God commanded you. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work. But the seventh day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. You shall not do any work, you or your son or your daughter, or your male or female slave, or your ox or your donkey, or any of your livestock, or the resident alien in your towns, so that your male and female slave may rest as well as you. Remember that you were a slave in the land of Egypt, and the Lord your God brought you out from there with a mighty hand and an outstretched arm. Therefore the Lord your God commanded you to keep the Sabbath day. Honor your father and your mother, as the Lord your God commanded you, so that your days may be long, and that it may go well with you in the land that the Lord your God is giving you. You shall not murder, neither shall you commit adultery, neither shall you steal, nor shall you bear false witness against your neighbor. Neither shall you covet your neighbor's wife, nor shall you desire your neighbor's house, or field, or male or female slave, or ox, or donkey, or anything that belongs to your neighbor. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord alone. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your might. Keep these words that I am commanding you today in your heart. Recite them to your children and talk about them when you are at home and when you are away, when you lie down and when you rise. Bind them as a sign on your hand, fix them as an emblem on your forehead, and write them on the doorsteps of your house and on your gates. Word of God, word of life.
Thanks be to God.
In the name of our Lord, amen. So as the story is moving along here, do you remember, this is kind of the giving of the Ten Commandments. This is the Deuteronomy version, so it's not quite as narrative as the other. But remember the setting. Remember what's been happening. They are gathering together at Mount Sinai, and God is meeting them on the mountain, and he gives them this gift. But what happened right before? They were slaves in Egypt, and God freed them from that slavery. God brought them across the Red Sea into the freedom of a promised land. Imagine what it would be like. And you can imagine too that these people, when you're a slave, you can't do anything that you want all by yourself, right? You can't do anything just of your own will or of your, you have to wait for orders. You have to wait and follow the rules that are set down by the master or by those in charge. But now the people they're free. And it would be really easy to imagine, wouldn't it, that they are free. What would you do? What would you do? Maybe we should just do this quietly. If you were just absolutely free to do whatever you wanted to do, with no restrictions at all, nothing holding you back. Imagine the chaos. So God brings them across, and God says, here, I'm giving you a very simple gift. And actually, the way Luther talks about this, when he was going back and when he was looking at the Hebrew, he said, wow, this is kind of a stunner, because actually, God speaks baby talk Hebrew to the people, so that they'll get it. Killing other people. Velo, says God. No, don't do it. Simple, 2 words. Kill, no. Adultery, no. Stealing, no. Now, in English it's like a lot of words. Bearing false witness against your neighbor. But in Hebrew it's 1 word. Bearing false witness against your neighbor, no. Don't do it. Hold yourself back. God is talking baby talk, and you might think to yourself, wow, I don't know. I feel like I'm being kind of patronized a little bit here, because after all, we're adults. But somebody, I think it was one of the Cookies and Milk kids, was asking me this last week, what is it like to be a pastor? If you were to kind of put it into the simplest possible words, what is it like to be a pastor? And I thought for a few minutes, and I thought, you know what it's like? It's like being the dad to 150 kids. Kind of the same sort of dynamics will often take place. And do you remember what it was like to be a kid? We kind of have this idea that children are born absolutely innocently and that they're sweet and perfect. But how many of you have brothers and sisters? How many of you had to sit in the back seat of the car with your brothers and sisters? Yeah, sitting in the back seat of the car with your sisters, Sophie. What's it like? Huh? It's crowded. Yeah, and your sisters are sitting right next to you, and they're kind of touching you, and it's hot, and you're going a long distance. And pretty soon, if you're like me, I'm getting kind of bored, right? And so you might kind of start going like, and then what does this start to do? Yeah, then all of a sudden they start to do it too. And pretty soon everybody's poking everybody else. And then pretty soon it turns into World War III in the back seat of your car. And what do your parents say? Stop! In Hebrew, they would say, Velo. Just stop it. We need to be able to get along. We want to be living in this world where everyone has the possibility and the potential to be able to live their life to the fullest. And it means that you're going to have to follow some basic rules. Now, one of the things that we have to understand here too, though, is that the 10 Commandments themselves are not necessarily perfect. That word adultery, that too, very specific Hebrew word. Guess what that word for adultery is very specific for? It's for women who are married. Those are the only ones, according to this way of looking at things, that can be punished for adultery. Now all the guys here, guys raise your hand. In the Hebrew system, you get a free pass. What? I know! It's not fair. It's not fair at all. And what's really kind of sweet is that Jesus himself will look at this thing and go, you know what? This is meant to be kind of a work in progress where you kind of need to keep working on things. And so with that issue of adultery, Jesus will look at the disciples and say, and all people, and say, you have heard it said, but I tell you. You have heard it said that only women can be accused of adultery. But guys, I'm not going to let you off the hook. Jesus will say, the famous Jimmy Carter, right? If you even look at another woman with lust, then you have done it too. Don't kill. And we can find all kinds of ways that we haven't killed people. And Jesus will say, yes, but if you even get angry with another person, if you think ill of another person, you're on the road. God is looking at trying to create not just a world of outward, but a world where it's within our hearts. That we're creating this harmonious place where we can dance together, where we can dance and work together and not be constantly worried about, do I have to protect myself here? Do I have to protect my things? Do I have to protect my relationships? But instead, that we can be free, interesting, truly free, because we know there are some very basic things that God has given us to allow us to play the game, this game called life, and to play it well. Very simple. Write it on your foreheads. They said, write it on your arm. I don't know, a tattoo of all those things maybe. Write it on your arms. Write it on your doorposts. Make it so that you just don't forget. Because there is a part of us that kind of starts getting kind of and just remind yourself. It's almost like God is saying, at least that's what my dad used to say, don't make me come back there. But that we, as God's children, but also as God's adults, can just simply get along.